Eureka! You found us! Welcome to the Check Out California radio show, your key to California hospitality. Hosted by Rad Gantos, principal of Rad Gantos and Associates, a hospitality and commercial real estate design firm, and Craig Sullivan, executive vice president of Park West GC, a hospitality and commercial real estate general contractor. Check Out California is focused on our state's hospitality, travel, and tourism markets, and on the large part they play in California's vibrant and innovative economic diversity and unique quality of life. Now, here are your hosts, Rad Gantos and Craig Sullivan.
Good afternoon. I'm Craig Sullivan.
And I'm Rad Gantos.
And welcome to Check Out California. Today's show, we've got another very special guest, a friend of mine for 20 plus years.
I'm sorry.
Senior, yeah.
It was scary when I thought about it.
Senior Vice President at CBRE Hotels. This is a global hospitality practice, so we may get outside the confines of the state of California a little bit.
Nothing
not
happens
by
beyond the
much.
state of California.
No, just like there is no life east of the 405 in
There
Orange
is?
County. So, but anyhow, Rod, welcome to Check Out California. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me, and appreciate the opportunity to talk with your audience.
We love it. Thank you for being here. Why don't you give your background to our audience, and then we'll jump in with some questions.
All right, I'll keep it a little bit brief, but a true born and raised native of Southern California, which is a rarity here, as you know, for anybody you meet.
It's two of us
You too.
in this room. Yeah.
That's great. So pretty much lives in Orange County since I was 2, so
Wow.
real native. Been doing real estate since 1986. Started doing hotel brokerage specifically in 1995. And I'd have to say probably 99% of my practice has been hotels. Obviously, I've got hotel clients that I've helped with office buildings and other product types. But strictly hotels, been with CBRE since 2011. There is probably 160 nationally hotel brokers within the company. I focus specifically on Southern California. I guess that's defined as Fresno to the Mexican border and everything along the coast. And our market range is probably 20 million and above. Everything from small boutique to large resort golf course, full mix.
Full mix. You're also doing development sites too from time to time.
That has been a big demand over the last couple of years. I'm sure you've been tracking that too. We can get in a little bit more of that in a little bit, but the basis of that, I think, is that the value of hotels have increased so much that on a price per room basis, it's maybe a little bit more cheaper in some cases to build before it is to buy.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. And speaking of that, how has the hotel transaction market performed over the last few years? I mean, is it frothy? Is where are we at? What do you're a broker. You are touching everything on the hotel sector.
Sure.
You're doing boutiques. You're doing branded. You're doing soft brands. Adaptive reuse and development. So I'd really be interested to get your opinion on, where the market is, what's it doing right now.
Well, let me take the approach that a portion of the audience is unfamiliar perhaps with the real estate cycles or the hotel market for that matter. Yeah. But in general, as some I'm sure very much aware, back in 08, 09, 010, we had quite a bit of a decline in the real estate market. And at that point, almost everything came to a screeching halt. Fortunately, there were a few developers out there that were still either had their construction loans lined up or were still in progress of building. Right. So they were continuing on with their development while the rest of the market came to pretty much a screeching halt. Fortunately for those guys is that when the market started to turn around, they were in a phenomenal position opening up new product around 2010, 2011. And 11 is really when we started to see the recovery start to take place. So to kind of fast forward through all this, the market has been on a tear, if you will, as far as revenue generating for the hotels on a national basis. Specifically here in Southern California, it's just been great. In 2014 and 2015 were phenomenal years for real estate transactions and for hotel transactions. At the end of 15, we had a bit of a dip in the stock market, which pulled a number of our major buyers out, specifically REITs. And REITs had been the ones prior to that driving cap rates and help pushing values. When they backed out at the end of 2016, or end of 2015, beginning of 2016, the whole market kind of pulled in the reins a little bit, and we saw a retraction. And depending on what articles you read or who you talk to, transaction volume in Southern California, I would take that back, on a national basis, transaction numbers dropped anywhere from 55 to 75% in 2016, which was a phenomenal change.
Wow.
Pace.
Yeah, that's huge.
And with that, you did not see any declines in value. As a matter of fact, owners' expectations were still as they were in 14 and 15, but there was a huge retraction on market activity. You can point some of that to the fact that the market had been going so strong for 4 or 5 years. We also had the election coming up at the end of 16, so there's some uncertainty in the marketplace, what was coming our way. And then at the beginning of last year, 2017, we saw a real turnaround again from investors taking another hard look at the market. I think they had pent-up demand. They had pent-up funds they had to place. And we also had owners that were now saying, okay, this market's been strong for so long.
We can trust it.
Yeah, I think it's time to really start doing something. So we saw definitely a turnaround in 2017 of activity, and that's translated over into this year, 2018. But the market is still very strong. Back in 16, we were hoping to get to 18. Well, we're here in 18 now. We're thinking 2020.
Right.
We still have low unemployment. We still have positive growth to RevPAR, which is your metric for hotels for accounting for room revenue.
Right.
So all the metrics are still there, suggesting that, barring some political catastrophe or something unknown coming along that people aren't ready for, I think we got a good market for a few years to come at least.
Any uncertainty still in the system as far as what we experienced?
I think the word is cautious optimism is what we continue to hear. There's always going to be some uncertainty. I think this past 4 months, we do something called a broker opinion of value, and that's done when an owner is thinking he wants to perhaps sell his asset. They'll call one of the big houses, CBRE included, where they want a broker opinion of the value, and in that we also do a proposal as far as what it may take to sell the asset. I've probably done more of those in the last 3 or 4 months than I did between 16 and 17.
Wow.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. So either you've got a whole bunch of listings or helping some clients out with some refis, if they're pulling money out.
But it's probably going to be one of the both. In some cases, they're family-owned operations, and they realize there's a huge value here. But the number one challenge we have in Southern California is if I'm a Southern California owner and I don't want to leave the state, and if I sell, and I realize I'm going to make a huge profit if I've purchased back in 2011 or 12, where do I go? Right? How do I replace this cash flow? And that's been a common theme through quite a few owners I've had where we've had some very strong buyers come in, willing to pay all cash, willing in some cases not only to pay their guidance but also to pay their capital gains. And the sellers would come back and say, well, my partners don't want to leave the state, and we just decided to hold and either refi or put some more money in the asset ourselves.
Now,
sorry, Greg,
Go ahead.
which is interesting because it flies into in the face of some of the stuff that you hear about people basically leaving the state. And here's an industry that's a little bit different because of the nature of tourism and other things and the appeal and the draw to the state of California. That I could totally understand people having that situation where they come to the reality and changing and going, I don't really want to leave the state.
Right. It's a dilemma, and one of the interesting factors about our market, Southern California, and this is a metric I like to use pretty regularly when I'm talking with my owners, there's a very big spread right now, not in values, but in availability of assets. We have an overabundance of buyers.
Right.
In fact, my kind of running joke is, I don't need buyers. I have buyers. I have existing clients that go way back. That we need
You've
product.
got an A-list of people that you'll go to. All of a sudden, hey, I got this listing, and boom, you talk to 3, 4, 5 of your clients, and one of them buys it, and you're on your way to escrow.
I had an offshore asset manager call us and say, we know you guys are very active in Anaheim. Do you think you have a buyer for this property? And we said we can make 2 phone calls, and we made 1. And we had an accepted LOI in about 2 weeks.
There you go.
And that's just the nature of the beast.
That's great.
The metric I like to throw out, I guess, to give some support to this. So let me take a half step back. So I'm with CBRE. We're world's largest real estate firm. We are top to bottom. I'm even consistently surprised on the different type of services we provide, everything from janitorial to finding ATM sites for different companies, right? But I am in the hospitality group. We do have an international presence. As I mentioned, I handle Southern California. And when we market an asset in the hotel side, we do what's for us called an e-blast. We send out an email, single-page flyer, but on that it's got links where you can click, and it'll take you to a secure website where you sign a confidentiality agreement, which gives you access to all the due diligence information. So that's a long-winded way around of saying that we have people sign confidentiality agreements when we launch a property. On a national basis, the national median is about 49 confidentiality agreements get signed under that methodology. When someone goes to market an asset in Houston, Chicago, wherever, the national median is 49 confidentiality agreements. In Southern California, we average about 240.
Wow.
So we are...
I knew it was 200.
Yeah, we're 5 times plus.
Yeah.
Now, there are not all buyers, of course, but even if you assume 10% of those are buyers, you've got 20 plus bridesmaids at the end of the day after we pick a potential buyer for an asset. And what that is another indicator of is that there's such a strong demand for product here in Southern California. You know, historically, we're the last guys to get hit and the first ones to recover in any type of economic issue. So
1991 was the same situation.
Right. So if you want to be safe placing your money in real estate investments in the United States, you're going to look here. You're going to look basically the West Coast here, San Francisco, Seattle, and then what was New York. We're seeing some retractions in New York now because there's a lot of overbuilding and a lot of acquisitions over the past few years. But with the lack of available assets, the challenges to build here in Southern California,
and they're numerous.
And they are numerous, and there are new products going up, but
a lot of select service right now.
That is the product of favor, which we'll get to in a minute, I'm sure. But from start to finish, I'll give a little plug for Artie Olson, the most prolific hotel builder in Southern California. I think you're looking at 7 years from oh, I like that site to opening your doors.
Right.
So there is quite a bit of a lag to get to the end of the day.
Yeah. And writing that over all the other variables that occur at the same time, and that's the interesting dynamic, right? Because you're committed at that point, and you're rolling, and we've seen properties make you think about like Surf City in Huntington Beach, and being involved in that in 2003 at WATG, and basically that thing just sat there with Makar and that group, and basically was fenced off forever. And every time I went down there for Sunday to play volleyball, there was the green fence still up and all that. And here comes the hotel, and here comes the fire pits on the pool deck that we talked about in 2003. And it's really funny because people that I don't think are involved in the life cycle of these things don't understand. They see construction, and then next thing, around 2 years later, you got something open. You go, oh, that's great, but they don't see how the sausage is made.
No, they never do. They don't need to either.
Some of it, I think some of it actually is fascinating. I think some of the people that are sitting in positions where they're blessing things like this, that they're municipality levels and things of that nature. I think if they actually had a little bit more clarity, because they have a lot of turnover too, in situations like that, they would understand what it actually takes to commit to a project of this nature and the assets and resources that are brought to bear. And there's really it is a certain caliber of person that gets involved in stuff like that.
Yeah. Bob and his team, they're bar none. They're the best we've got in Orange County. And you look at what he's done with all of his projects, and I think the old City Hall site,
the Lido House.
The Lido House. I mean, what was that? I think that was 5 years, and they were on it. They had done with Huntington, moved on to Lido House, and it's a beautiful asset. It's a jewel within the city of Newport Beach, just like Pacific City and the Paseo Hotel up there that he did, and he's a class act, and I'm proud to call Bob a neighbor. So, and I was really happy was there was another construction company, the one that built the Newport Beach City Hall, that remained nameless, was trying to get the old City Hall site. And it really came down to our local Newport Beach guy or an outsider. And luckily Bob got it.
And in addition to just being the local, he also had the resume behind him that these are real-time costs, real-time process.
Wasn't afraid of Coastal Commission, wasn't afraid of the city, and went in there cooperating with everybody. So So, who are your investors right now? Are they mainly foreign money investors looking for safe havens? And you're not doing any EB5 deals, I don't believe.
No, matter of fact, EB5s, were very popular for a while. The Chinese investor has pretty much dried up to some extent. There are those that still have money available that's either been already placed here in the U.S. that they have developable funds that they can draw from. The list of who the investors are, it's everybody. The crazy thing about Southern California, against such a high demand, we have everything from REITs, national REITs. We have international investors. We have large private equity funds. We have family offices. And then all the way through, we have groups that started off with the Days Inn years ago, or even
just built.
Even an independent by Disneyland back in the 70s, and over time they've grown, and so you really can't discount who the buyer pool is. We took a property down in Vista out middle of last year, and the seller said, look, I want you to do your whole marketing campaign, but if someone comes in close to my guidance, we'll take a preemptive offer. Well, we launched on a Wednesday, which we did our e-blast, as I described earlier.
Right.
And within 2 weeks, we had 6 preemptive offers all over seller's guidance.
Wow.
And in that mix included national REITs, high net worth funds, and some high net worth family offices. And at the end of the day, the local high net worth family office, because they're more nimble, they probably have thinner margin or better margins because they can run more efficiently because they are local, was able to give the best price of the day on the property. And was able to take it. And so who are the buyers? It's basically a who's who: international, domestic, and domestic nationally and domestic very regional. And the regional guys give large national players a real run for their money.
Well, they know what they've got. I mean, there's a local knowledge base in that, right? I mean, especially in the state of California. Or I would think Florida, probably in a different manner, probably has a similar situation.
Yeah, I would say in the market area of anything 100 million or less, and that number is probably going to change over the next few years to exceed that 100 million. But the local guys, I think, for many reasons, but one of them is they can use their synergies of having multiple hotels in the area and diversifying their costs or spreading their costs across other assets.
Absolutely. Now, I'm looking at, you were kind enough to send this to Rad and I the other day, your significant Southern California assignments, just to give the audience a sampling of some of the stuff hotel-wise that Rod and his team are touching here in Southern California. We've got the Residence Inn in the Gas Lamp in San Diego, Doubletree Del Mar, San Diego, Sheraton Pasadena, Hyatt Place in Carlsbad. I know the buyer on that one. That's a mutual client.
Hello, Joseph.
Yeah. Doubletree Hotel, Circle, San Diego. I remember when that was an independent. I did like 4 refis on that thing, Inn at Rancho Santa Fe, Hilton Garden Inn, Rancho Mirage, Hotel Z. That's an interesting hotel with some really interesting stories behind it that probably we should talk about off the air. But, great property, and that's San Diego. The Embassy Hotel, Santa Monica. You got the Crown Plaza, San Diego, Marriott and Del Mar, San Diego, the Metropolis site in downtown LA. I really want to talk to you about that. And the Holiday Inn Suites in Anaheim, Doubletree in Carson. So those are all substantial assets that...
And a range.
Yeah. High net worth, private equity funds, REITs, the gambit. So, yeah, you've got, all the top tier listings that and assignments that, any brokerage firm would be proud of. But it's, again, it gets back to you and your team. Again, you and I go back 20 plus years, and I've seen you out there. You've got your A game going all the time. You are constantly moving, constantly having meetings at all the conferences that we go to. You're constantly, reaching out and talking to owners, operators, developers, lenders, anybody and everybody involved with that real estate component and that sale and that development you're in front of. And let's touch a little bit more on your peripheral services. You've got 2 of the very best. I think these guys are both legends in our industry that support you and the rest of the hotel group, and they provide us with vast amounts of information that is timely and it's right on target. You got Mark Woodward, back east, and you've got Bruce Bolton here in Los Angeles, and that's got to be, phenomenal advantage for you and your group, having those guys and being able to pick up that phone. Doesn't matter what time, and talk to them.
Right, Bruce and his team. I've known Bruce for probably just like you, 20 plus years.
Yeah.
He is an icon in the Southern California market and probably the West Coast. They do the vast majority of feasibility studies, market studies for most of the major developments that you have here in Southern California, and they're just a wealth of information. And we have which is great, we have a bi-weekly call with the advisory group.
Yeah.
Nice.
To go over what's happening with the market and share some intelligence, things we're working on, or what the insight is perhaps in certain submarkets, what's going on with individual cities, which is real important, especially since we're seeing, like as you mentioned, more development. I would love to say that cities are smooth processes to get through, and everything's going to go on a timely manner. And we're doing a very large development in Burbank, and no fault of our developer, but it's really an issue of time and how the city's just processing things, and we're probably a year and a half behind, which is probably, it's a very large, complicated project, but that's probably the norm of what we would expect.
Well, and Rod, I think, I'm sure this applies across the country and probably even the world, but the nature of cities or locations also varies and changes, and it's sort of a growth process too. 20 years ago, take your pick of anything near Spectrum and South, as far as open space and strawberry fields, right? Right. Now we're looking at communities that are basically built out. I live in San Clemente. We're looking at communities that are built out. We're looking at the coming to terms with things like spot zoning and infill projects. And 10, 20 years ago, nobody used the word infill project, right?
Well, that's a great comment.
It's an interesting change of the dynamic of this.
So one of the engagements that CBRE Hotel Advisory Group, which is Bruce Bolton and Jeff Lugosi and team, they've been now doing engagements where they've been hired by the cities to come out and say, can we have any more hotels? Are we oversaturated? Are we going to start, cannibalizing the TOT, the transitory occupancy tax, which all the cities want, the bed tax? Are we going to start cannibalizing that if we let more hotels into our market? That's a relatively new phenomenon.
Well, there's also the societal component, because a lot of these communities are older communities with established residents that are basically staying in their homes longer, and so the policy side of this equation as well is factor here, because in some cases, no, I don't want that volume in traffic. I don't want it in the middle of my neighborhood. So I
think those are NIMBYs. I think it's what we call them.
Exactly. But it's really kind of funny, because that is part of the reality of this development cycle, right? And what do you do? Because the economic engines in Southern California have been so driven by real estate development on a lot of these communities. And these communities, the resource number one was land availability and maybe a more receptive ear to allow for things like that. And now we're in a different cycle. So it's a really interesting way to navigate and still get these projects. I personally think that just means for better product in some cases, that we might be looking at things that are a little outside the normal box of thinking that we've done in the past 20 years, and we may actually be doing infill projects or smaller product that has a higher quality and caliber, and putting in more variety of options in the market.
That's the ideal.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is, right? Sometimes it's the challenge that actually leads you to basically develop a better mousetrap. Sometimes that is the case. So you look at the Auberge property down in Del Mar. You look at places like that. I remember back in the day,
couldn't do that today.
No, but I remember back in the day, even with the surf and sand, right? I mean, here's a property, right? There was no friggin' restaurant, and then WAG comes in and basically carves out Splashes, right? Right. You want the best sunset on the coast? Go sit there and have a drink at Splashes when the sun is coming down right in between that piece of glass right across the way across the sand of Laguna Beach. It's an interesting thing. It's not going to happen in every case. It's not a volume answer. But I think there are properties, there's the locations, there's still location. I still want to be able to go there. I still want to park my Tesla and go surf a couple of world, renowned surf spots.
Sure.
What does that product look like that I'm staying at?
Right. Well, and the challenge there, too, is that I think landowners have gotten both the surprise and smart at the same time. I've got owners calling me and saying, I have this site in X city with, it's kind of like a mixed-use area, industrial, and never thought it would be a hotel site, and now I've got hotel developers calling me. What do you think? Should we take this out to the hotel market? Mm-hmm. And the challenge there is that land, developable land for hotels is, not that readily available. And then when you do find it, the owners are saying, now the demand's picked up a little bit. what is this worth, and all of a sudden their value
Now
of
the
their
number,
land
yeah.
starts to move
Right.
up. And the next thing you know, where it may have penciled a year ago, now the owners are, I don't want to use the word greedy, but perhaps perceive the market maybe a little
Right,
more
and asking
aggressive
for
than
that
what it
ex-
should be.
Right, asking
Right.
for that extra $1 million, $2 million on now because of that reality. Oh, wait a minute! I got an asset that basically can carry this. Now, basically, could kill the deal or put a lot of strain on it financially.
Right, and most of the time it's putting the strain on it on the back end.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about development some more. What's going on with the Metropolis site in downtown LA?
Metropolis site is nearing completion. We sold that 2000. I got to think back now. 14, is that right?
I was going to say it's been at least 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah. That site, it was interesting. When we originally underwrote that site, it had the potential to have multiple office buildings and multiple hotels on it.
Right.
Our thought was that at best it would be a dual branded tower, because that's now kind of all the rage, and the Residence Inn Courtyard had just recently opened down the street. And perhaps one single full service tower, so 2 hotel towers, and the rest probably office. Greenland came in and purchased it. The residential market was on fire downtown Los Angeles, and they actually came in and said, we're not doing any of that. We're not doing office, we're not doing hotel, we want all residential towers.
Wow.
Well, the city came back and said, we need hotel rooms. So if you want to get approvals for all the residential
Gotta
towers,
include that.
you got to give us a hotel room. And kind of I don't know what you want to call it, funny, but perhaps interesting story, and I think I can share this. We sat in the room with Greenland when they were going through trying to pick their brand for the site. And with the Chinese background, it had to be a brand that was recognizable back home. It had to be a certain size, certain standard. Also, certain feel to it, because the chairman of Greenland would be coming out and staying in the area. And we went through all the brands, and at the end of the day, it appeared it was going to be what they wanted was a Indigo hotel. And the hotel's about 300 and, I think I'm drawing a blank here, but I want to say 375 rooms, maybe 380. And so I got a hold of the then rep here in Southern California. I said, I just want to give you a heads up. They're really going to try and make this happen. And he said, it'll never happen because we're building the largest Indigo in Manhattan, right? And that's where it's going to be. So the following week, he called me kind of with his tail between his legs. And he says, well, I didn't know that the chairman of Greenland was going to play golf with the head of IHG Asia over the weekend. And Southern California is now going to have the world's largest Indigo at Metropolis.
That's funny.
Yeah. So,
small world. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
The deals that happen on golf courses.
yeah, so Metropolis is all predominantly residential and hotel. They did have the hotel on the market. They were looking for about $800,000 a door, which was a pretty substantial number.
Yeah.
And at last conversations, they were talking to buyers, but I don't know how close they are to really achieving anything.
Anything on that? What about, where's the activity? What is it? What is the preferred development product type right now?
It's very easy. By and far, although you will see a couple of full service deals happening, it's select service product.
Yeah.
Ideally an extended stay, Residence Inn, Homewood, or Hilton and Marriott product. But really, the darling of the market is a Hampton Inn of all things. You're looking at your cost to construct is very efficient, and your operations again are very efficient. So you're pulling great margins on those properties. And if you think about it, if you're a hotel operator, do you really want to have an F&B component? Do you really want to have all the sundries? It's a whole different game, much more employees, much harder to run.
Yeah.
In Southern California, if you can put up 120 to 200 room select service product, it's going to do well, almost without exception, wherever you put it.
Yeah.
No, it's very, very telling, right? Because I think we've gotten a little smarter about that. You saw I remember the days when you would basically have 6 or 7 F&Bs basically in a particular property. I remember doing a Hyatt in Dubai one time, and we had literally every type of F&B that you can imagine.
It's like Vegas.
I'm not kidding you. We had a New York steakhouse that looked like it belonged underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. We had a grappa bar that looked like it came out of some Bernini fountain in Rome. We had a pizza place that basically looked like Barbara Lazaroff had put together, right? And a grappa bar and a lobby bar that basically looked like something out of Philippe Stark. I mean, this was all. It was like themed F&B in one hotel property.
Right.
And then 3 years later, I'm looking at properties here where everybody's going, well, maybe we'll bring in the Daily Grill and they'll run, right? I mean, it's really funny. And why even go down that path? Especially if you're located in a place where there's a lot of opportunities and options. It's almost better to cross-brand with a bunch of local businesses, and actually everybody benefits indirectly that way, offering live entertainment, whatever, but it's not really something that you're basically committing resources to.
Yeah.
It takes a different kind of mindset, I think, to get into that space, but it is very successful.
It's a very challenging space. Bob Olson, again, coming back to Artie Olson, opened their Marriott down in the Spectrum, and they've done a phenomenal job. And if I remember correctly, their operations are a bit of a hybrid on that to help a full-service hotel, make sense. I mean, if you think about it, where was the last full-service hotel that opened in Orange County?
Yeah.
There hasn't been one in quite a few years, and
Right.
then now you have downtown LA, which you've got opportunity because of the convention center and what's happening in that core market. And if anywhere, that's where you're seeing full service opportunities.
Correct.
But even then, you're seeing kind of hybrids. You're seeing a lot of boutiques coming in that may have third party celebrity chef type of thing will come in and lease, and right. So it's not
Gastropub, third party.
Well,
Exactly.
I spent the last year working on stuff on renovations and remodels on stuff on Monarch Beach down in Dana Point, and we just put in a bourbon steak down there.
Right.
Michael Mina restaurant, they brought in Miraval as their spa component. So again, and that is its own intricacies of kind of integrating that under all one kind of management and operational. But yeah, bring in the experts that basically run this thing with a product that has driven loyalty, and you might have a better option as offering that service on your property.
sure.
Hey, we're going to
Take
go
a
to a
break.
commercial break right now. We will be back with Ron Apodaca shortly. Thank you.
When you use the Premier Rewards Gold Card from American Express, the rewards points can keep on multiplying. Buy 3 with triple points on airfare. Buy 2 with double points on gas and groceries. And a single point for pretty much every other dollar you spend on the card. Then, start choosing from over 1 million rewards to redeem all those points. Apply today and the annual fee for the first year is on us. Call 1-800-AXP-GOLD or visit axpgold.com. The annual fee for the card is $175. See terms, conditions, and restrictions at axpgold.com.
Imagine buying a newspaper and discovering that the news you're reading is 6 months old. There isn't much that stays the same for 6 months, and the same thing goes for background checks. In a time when so much outdated information is being passed around, it's good to know that People G2 offers something different. At People G2, we provide today's intelligence, not yesterday's news. Our value-added approach offers you a fully FCRA-compliant solution that includes up-to-the-minute information. By combining industry-leading technology with old-school human investigation, People G2 is able to give you information that is accurate right now, delivered quickly through our online system, or integrated with your HR system. So ask yourself, are you comfortable working with old news, or are you ready for a different kind of background check company? Visit peopleg2.com or call 800-630-2880. That's 800-630-2880 or peopleg2.com.
Welcome back. This is Checkout California. Rod Gantos, Craig Sullivan, and we've got Rod Apodaca, Senior Vice President from CBRE Hotels, in the room with us.
Great first half.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Hey, let's talk a little bit about debt. What's the availability on debt?
On the tail end of saying it's a great first half.
Death or debt?
Debt. Well, it could be both.
It could be both.
How are you finding that for the demand? For not only the acquisition side, but for development as well. I mean, you've got an extensive, arm within your firm that can help with debt and equity, and I'm sure they're playing in both.
Sure.
The acquisition side and the development side at this point.
And
all those select service hotels that are being built up and down the state.
Well, I'll say right now, because obviously things can change, but this year and looks like into the very not too distant future, but this year I think there's plenty of debt both on the construction and acquisition side. We're seeing loans coming in anywhere between 65 and 75% LTV. Spreads have remained pretty attractive to everybody. There's always the threat, and there was a report this morning with the Fed that they're going to continue along the path of probably raising interest rates 2 more times this year. But considering the base that they're working from, cost of funds on your debt side is still relatively attractive.
Right.
And again, with the top lines that we're seeing, deals are penciling. So there is availability of debt.
On the construction side, are you finding they're more like 60% loan to cost, or are they 50, 55%?
Yeah, I'm going to hedge my answer on that, because at the end of the day, it depends on the deal, it depends on the sponsor, and it depends on how it's stacked. You could have just a straight construction loan. You may have some other type of bridge loans in there for some other items associated with the asset.
A little bit of mezz debt in there.
Yeah, probably the safe answer is probably 50 to 55% of cost.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But
Yeah.
it seems that's tightened up a little bit. I mean, we're not seeing, a replay of, 07, 08, maybe even 06 with the bigger resorts and full service assets. These are all select service. That's 24 months, 125 keys, maybe 200 keys. Certainly not as many moving parts, but I don't think you're seeing 75% loan to cost. I don't see it.
No,
I'm not seeing 60%. I mean, if it is, you're right. It's a very strong sponsor, and this is not their first rodeo.
Right.
This is their 5th, 6th, their 7th hotel, and they've got it down pat. They've got management in play. They've got their preferred brand, and they've got all the moving parts, in line.
Which brings up an interesting point on the transaction side. There was a time where a financing contingency was a standard part of a letter of intent.
Not anymore.
Right? Not anymore. And for the past, where are we now? Probably 4 years, maybe 5 years. Those have relatively vanished, unless you've got nobody else at the table and it's a complicated deal. But generally speaking, we've been in situations where the buyers have come in, we've had our call for offers, multiple offers come in, and guidance for a buyer is if you've got any type of financing contingency,
take it out.
You're not going to get this. And by the way, we're going to vet your process before we pick anybody. And of course, everyone has debt at the end of the day. They're going to put some type of debt to finish the purchase.
Right.
But again, with the amount of demand that's out there, the buyers that generally win at the end of the day have existing capital partners, existing lenders, lines of credit they can draw upon, and securing and closing the loan becomes a non-issue.
Yeah.
Of course, there are those unique situations where, there's some type of hair on the deal that makes it more complicated. But by and far, you won't see buyer financing contingency on a lot of
not anymore.
So Greg mentioned something, and maybe it's worth exploring a little further. In the current market, are you seeing more seasoned buyers that are basically just expanding their holdings, or are you seeing much more people that are entering into the marketing industry?
The guys that are entering will be more aggressive on pricing. So the answer is you're seeing both, but I would say overall, the guys that are winning the deals are those that are expanding or have a track record behind them.
The experience.
Right, the experienced guys. And the guys that aren't as experienced, what happens is they're coming in, and part of it is actually the conversations we have with them. If you want to be able to beat out Craig, for example, that's been in the market for 20 years, I as a seller, obviously price is one of my number one concerns, but certainty of close is not far behind.
Right.
And so, Craig's brother comes to me and says, well, I want to compete against Craig, but I've never bought a hotel. Well, you've got pretty stiff competition in front of you. Yeah, well, I'm going to pay another 10 or 15% premium on top of that. And that's where you see the owners start going, maybe we ought to give this guy, a run for his money. Yeah. And for good and bad, we've seen deals that have worked, but we've also had some very large deals where the buyer walked out of the room and we looked at the seller in the eye and we all said, he ain't got it. But I've got a board I got to report to. He's at the highest number.
I have to take that into
consideration. I have to take it into consideration, and I got to give it a shot.
Right.
And so let's give him a week, 2 weeks. Let's see if we can flesh out what he has or doesn't have. Funny story. We did a deal where we had 6 contenders. We had 2 days of in-person interviews with the seller, and that event actually happened where our high guy came in and he talked about the deal and how much he could pay, and he was substantially above everybody else, and he left. And so we're going, okay, well, it was on a Friday. He's got until next week. Let's see how he pans out. So because we had some time, if you will, in the deal, I ended up calling one of the potential buyers who was an equity player and was looking for a partner. And I called him up and he said, hey, I think I may have somebody if you're willing to come in. His price is a little rich, but I think he's willing to put in more equity, and therefore you could put in the same amount you wanted to put in. And as we went through the conversation, it turned out, he goes, well, I am meeting somebody over the weekend. And it ended up being the guy that we had just interviewed who didn't have his equity tied up at all.
And was trying to
trying to go out and find land equity after the fact. Well, I told my the equity source, said, okay, well, call me after you have the meeting with this guy and let me know how it goes. So by Monday, this was on a Friday, by Monday he was out.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a very small circle.
It is a very, very
It gets smaller the longer you are in it.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
it does.
It's funny.
Is there an imbalance between the buyer demand and seller supply right now?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier on the confidentiality agreements, there's a huge spread in the gap, and it's not just pricing. Yeah. There is some of that. That's an interesting thought too, because our job when we go and take a listing is try and be within reason with the market as far as pricing goes. And you also need to understand that based on the fact that we have such low supply, that you're going to get some type of bidding war on a very desirable product. Right. If you have what I would designate as a top shelf select service asset.
Here they come.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be crazy.
Right.
I've recently did a proposal on a deal, and the owner asked me, he says, what do you think? And I said, I'll guarantee you we're going to have over 200 confidentiality agreements on this thing. He's like, why? And everything we've already talked about, there's just not a supply. And guys are looking for stable, secure, that top shelf select service asset. We've seen cap rates in hotels. I would say 2 years ago, you were probably looking at maybe a 7 cap. And for those that don't know, a cap rate is a metric to compare net cash flow to a purchase price. So if you're throwing $100,000 off in net operating income and you paid $1 million for the property, that $100,000 is 10%. So that's a 10 cap. And so today, well, let me retract that. From last year, all the deals we did last year were between a 5.7 and a 6.2 cap for hotels, everything from top shelf select service to hotels that needed a lot of capital improvements. Right? I'm seeing new product come out in the market today that's priced out in about a 7 cap, which I am telling all of my clients go, because the groups that got those listings, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, I'm not sure how entrenched they are into the Southern California market. And if you're going to sell a top shelf select service property at a 7 cap, you're going to get a lot of attention. Now, my suspicion is at the end of the day, it's going to trade in that low 6 cap rate. It might even go sub 6. Considering
so it's an inflated?
Well, the cap rate, I think, on at least a couple of the assets I looked at, we look at all the metrics. We look at cap rates. We also look at price per room, and if you're starting to break $300,000 a room for a good quality select service property, some may think that's high. But there's a whole market out there that, no, it's all about yield and return. And look, if you're doing a huge top line, that price per room is just going to go up at the same cap rate. Right? So I think what's going to happen is they're going to get inundated with interest because you have such a high offering cap rate, hence a lower price, and the market is going to bid it up. And of course, they'll come away looking like heroes, like, hey, look at all the players we had. But the reality of it is I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's unsafe to market properties in the low 6 cap rate in Southern California.
Now, and you really need to look at stuff because, given the fact that the inventory is low, I would think that lesser quality product would also come in and possibly at first glance seem one way until you really look closer at it.
B quality select service property we traded at a 6.2 cap, including the PIP. If you back the PIP out, it was still about a 6.6. Really? Right? So it's not an 8. It's not an 8.5. Right. Now, by the way, these are Orange County, L.A. and San Diego well-located
market
assets.
That makes a difference, right?
Sure. Yeah. Right. We're not in
San Bernardino.
But, I don't want to say that. Let's say Eastern. Let's say East California.
East California. That side. Would you say nothing exists on that side?
What'd you say about the 405?
Yeah, I said there's no nightlife east of the 405.
No, but I moderated a panel on HR this morning for our industry, and it was interesting to me because at first glance, sometimes something looks really rosy and great, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of these properties basically have other issues. I mean, we were talking about retention issues, and we were talking about and you're buying everything. Are you buying a lemon? What's underneath the hood? And you really need the expertise of people like you, like Greg, people that have been in the industry that are familiar with that local market to really guide. Because especially if the money's coming out from outside or investors coming from outside. You're not. Under what rock should you look? Under what hood should you be looking? And that's when you need it. Otherwise, you're shooting. I don't know, in wild.
Right. When we go to the market, one of the mandatory things we have owners do is pull what's called a transfer PIP, and that's where the brand comes out and says, okay, if you want to maintain whatever
Standards
brand it may be, you have to meet certain standards. And if the hotel doesn't have it, then it's going to show up in the report. It needs to take place, and that is, I think, pretty obvious. That erases huge risk in selling the property because there's no surprises at that point. And
latest requirement for ADA, I mean that's changed twice on us in the last,
You're amazed sometimes how surprising things come up. We've done deals where the hotel is still going through over the last year and a half of the current owner's PIP. He's going through the improvements, and we'll talk to the brand. The brand says, "No, we don't see anything in here." And then 2 weeks combine, the brands come out and decide if we want to change the lobby concept, or we have a new version 6 of some room design.
Rod, we had a situation. Again, I think it's okay for me to share this, but we had a situation on Monarch where we basically are no longer St. Regis. It's a Monarch brand. It's personally flagged. We're putting in a Michael Mina restaurant. We're putting in a bourbon. It's a known entity. It's a known product. It's approved at the city. Everything is cool and great. They just went through a change of hands a few years ago, so it hasn't been that long since they went ahead and had to remodify and basically meet current at that point ADA code, right? As most people know, or if you don't, most restaurants and food and beverage locations in a hotel do not have their own facilities. It's actually a common facility or a public facility nearby. We had to modify bathrooms that had been modified not that long ago when it changed hands yet again because of an obligation to meet an ambulatory bathroom stall requirement, which is above and beyond what ADA stalls are needed. And that was a new addition to the ADA code. Without that, a $3 million renovation on a restaurant basically could have faltered.
Sure.
And we had, I'll give credit to the city of Dana Point. They partnered with us in finding a solution to the problem. But this is the kind of thing. Like nobody even was aware of it. The whole deal was structured. Papers were drawn. They're going in. All this stuff. Something that was down the corridor and around the corner and to the left basically could have held up the whole thing on a $3 million renovation.
Yeah.
And if you don't know to ask the question, when are you going to find that out? When you're basically about looking for that certificate of occupancy, and the guy goes, "Well, hold on.
Yeah, this isn't right."
Yeah.
Yeah. So CapEx is real important for deals as we look at them. We factor those into our pricing. And again, the hope is that you've got the brand on your side saying this is what we're expecting, and we're not going to change it by the time you get for your call for offer date.
Yep.
We've had some deals go sideways with parent companies that will go unnamed, where in the very beginning they're like, "Okay, you're fine," and then something showed up on the transfer PIP that was so material cost-wise, and from operational size of the hotel, it literally killed the deal, and no one could figure out how to make it work.
Well, and you're under pressure. Now it's like, okay, here, come up with a solution. We got a time frame going on, right?
Yeah, and in this particular case, you were taking a 2-pipe system, which is a heating and cooling system for a hotel. They wanted to go from a 2-pipe to a 4-pipe. Well, to do that, you've got to go through rooms. You've got to change out everything. It's not an easy. It's not an easy fix by any measure.
Nope. Disruption of being operating and all of that good stuff too.
Right. So you have the cost of that improvement plus the cost of the lost business, and how do you calculate that?
Exactly. That's it's fun. I was looking at a hotel here locally in Orange County that we won't name, but the brand wants the P-tax out, and they want a 4-pipe system, and it's like, really? I mean, if you check the height of these ceilings
between the hours of 9 at night and 6 in the morning.
Yeah. Is it full service?
No.
Okay. You'll tell me off the air.
Yeah, I'll tell you off the air. And
I'll stay away from that one.
Yeah. And my conversations with the ownership, it's like, okay, if you thought about, maybe going with a soft brand or just doing a boutique here, I mean, And you will probably picture the hotel after this statement. It's surrounded by office buildings, and there is no life there at night, especially on the weekends. And it's very close to where we are right now. So it's like, do you really need that brand? I don't think so. I mean, you've got a lot of work going on in these office buildings, which a couple of them are probably on the verge of, like this building, being obsolete as a Class A office building and bringing in different type of clientele. And as they bring in that younger millennial open concept workspace, they're going to want some stuff there. And they've got a full bar. Okay, so let's take advantage of that. You've got a reasonably good F&B component here, but let's take it to another level. Let's go with either a soft brand or do a boutique here. Go from there.
I wanted to ask this before we run out of time, because I really would like to get Rod's input on this. What are you seeing that's innovative that you're thinking? I mean, we've been doing this thing a long time, right? So what are you seeing right now that you're kind of excited about? What are you seeing coming that maybe is interesting?
Well, a lot of these lifestyle hotels are coming out. Some have great ideas, but kind of a quick tangent on that. There's so many of them now. The brands have come out. It's like every other conference we go to. Hilton, Marriott, it's just like, really?
Like 42 new flags out there.
Yeah,
in 3 years.
And how do you keep track of them and who's who? But on the exciting side, if you think about it, when you go to your hotel and you're in your room, you're usually done for the night, or you're going to relax and watch TV. You might have a small workstation in there, but you're missing all the energy of what's around you. So your options are either try and go out or go someplace, or now you've got common workstations in the lobby.
Right. Social gathering space, grab and go food, maybe a small bar, opportunity for beer and wine where you can come down and just be around other people. And that's, I think that's something that we've seen for a number of years and obviously going to continue. And then something minor, which I think, it's funny how long it took to me finally discovering it, is now they're finally offering, basically your iPhone can plug into your TV and you can watch Netflix and YouTube, and that's an advancement. Get into an Uber and play your Spotify on their
there you go. Right,
co-branding is the thing now. The big plus sign with two logos on either side of it. I mean, it is it's actually kind of an exciting time for that. I teach a class on hotel design at the Art Institute here in Orange County, and one of the things that we've been telling students is ignore the fact that there should be even a desk in the room.
Right.
Everybody's on their laptops on the bed. Closet, what do you like? You got a roller. Nobody checks bags into on a plane. You just got a roller or some sort of duffel bag. And what do you need to basically allocate an armoire worth of space for in a room, right? I mean, it's interesting how that's all changed, and the social component is major. I mean, we do a lot of spas, and believe it or not, at the same time, that one of the main services that are basically sought after right now is silence to be paid for in a spa. So we are so busy and crazy, the old Eagles song about don't let your own wheels drive you crazy. We let our own wheels drive us so crazy that we will go pay for silence. But at the same time, in that same environment of a spa, we will pay for silence, but we will also pay to be in a hug room or some sort of a social environment where we basically are engaged with people, genuinely engaged with people, versus just seeing what they're posting on Facebook. It's a very interesting time, and given the fact that hotels have always been where you make memories, where you kind of anchor certain special moments in your life, that all of this starts to permeate into those environments. And what does that look like?
Well, you're seeing the growth of Yotel, Citizen M, I mean, just to name two. You've got the Freehand downtown where you actually have shared rooms. And the Freehand, not to try and give them a plug, is just they did a beautiful job on that building and the way the rooms are set up and the bar upstairs. But it's crazy. You walk into a Yotel, which is a cabin. It's not a room. Citizen M, again, very, very tight quarters, but they work. If you're in New York,
Was it the Wayfair we had?
Well, the Wayfair just opened,
with the backpacking component, basically. It's like the guy that took off after college and went backpacking in Europe. Now you can basically
they're kind of the hostel type of configuration, right? But they're great because if you think about it, like I was able to stay on the Yotel, wanted to check it out in Manhattan, and it made perfect sense. I mean, you're never in your room; you're always out either doing business or especially at the conference, you're never back.
Say it sounds like NYU.
That's exactly what it was, right? And you come back late at night to your room, and the next morning you're up and you're gone.
Right.
right? So you don't need all the extra square footage and all the extra
Didn't
amenities.
Cosmo just put in like crash rooms in Vegas where basically people are out there basically partying all the time? All they need is just a couch to crash on for a couple of hours.
That's the hotel to come. It's going to be a big room with a bunch of couches and pillows. I think
right.
they call it a prison, I think, isn't that?
Or a dormitory,
Or a dormitory,
or
yeah.
a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
But no, I mean
that's urban camping.
Urban camping. We've changed the name. It's not a homeless shelter. It's called urban camping.
I like that.
And the
Just need to brand it.
the building structure.
Exactly.
Well, you said Peoples, and I'm thinking, is that another brand that needs to come out there?
There could be one, I'm sure, somewhere.
You've got Pacifica Hotels, Wayfair opening up, and you had the Mayfair just open up, and I was checking out their website and everything that they've got going on over at that hotel, and it's just, there's some hip, chic, cool, hybrids that are coming out, and I'm just very.
I'm kind of excited. I think
I am. I want to see them. I want to go stay at a couple of them and
the
check it
challenge,
out.
right? The challenge is density. So if I've got 25 really hip boutique hotels all within a certain radius, it becomes a challenge.
Of
Now,
course it is.
if you've got the demand there, whether that be a convention center or a sports arena, sports arenas really don't count, but convention center or something driving your
a consistent flow.
your demand generators, and that's fine. But you can't go down. Nothing wrong with San Juan Capistrano, but you can't go down to San Juan Capistrano and have 10 boutique lifestyle hotels. It's just not going to work.
Not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
And to a plug for the brands, people want to use their points, right? They want to take advantage to collect those to get free nights,
Right.
And there's a huge factor for brand loyalty, and that's why the brands are trying so much to get these different types of lifestyle brands out there.
I'll tell you, I don't know when was the last time you flew through Houston, but I encountered a situation with mileage points the other day that was like fascinating in development. I'm sitting at the airport terminal. There's a couple of food and beverages. I'm sitting at the tables. There's no longer any black chairs anywhere. It's all up and down counters, and every single one of them has a tablet.
Right.
And that tablet, basically, the first thing you do is it scans your QR code off your boarding pass, and it immediately allows you to basically purchase Prosecco, fried chicken wraps, whatever you want from any of these friggin' restaurants that gets delivered to you on a cart, by the way, which I thought was really nice, old school, right? And basically, you can use your mileage to pay for it, or you can use credit card for it. And it's like, okay, so this is kind of interesting now. It's basically on demand, food and beverage at any location in the terminal, right? And I'm sure it's one step. And it wasn't just food and beverage, by the way. You could buy like anything from newspaper to your charger to whatever from any of the stores that are in there, and it's literally on a cart.
Comes to
Being rolled to you, and I'm like, why isn't there advertising on the card? I almost like went there. I'm like, okay, how much more branding can we do
how much
here?
can you push it?
How much advertising space can I sell?
Brought to you by American Airlines.
Brought to you by United.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry, that's their terminal, right? But it's interesting.
That's
It's like these
funny.
things, and then you talk about automation in hotels and lobby check-ins and all this stuff, and we're just scratching the surface about how does that actually translate while still maintaining a hospitable component.
Yeah, I'm still looking for that front desk checkout that is or check-in rather, that is just so efficient that the dream was you'd already pre-booked your room. You're able to walk in. Maybe there's something barcode that you can flash and go directly to your room, or with your phone, ideally, right, to be able to get to your keyless entry. I've still been in quite a few hotels where you're kind of shocked about how slow the front desk is, and why is this still an issue? You don't complain. It's just they're going through whatever bugs, or that's just the way they operate. But there's going to become some more efficiencies.
So I'll share this personal experience in Austin. We went to a friend's wedding, and we opted, because we were going to be there for a little longer, we opted for quote unquote like an Airbnb component, right? Now the interesting thing is,
Traitor.
I walked but this is a lesson to be learned by some of these hotel properties too. We went into a situation where, literally, on my phone was the punch-in key for the keypad. I punched it in, went into the thing. There was no check-in. All right. I went into the space of this apartment. Every single thing was branded and labeled. I had everything from the little welcome little things to where I should text or whatever if I needed toothpaste. All of it. It had a virtual front desk basically.
Was there a parent brand?
There was.
Was it a Marriott or a Hilton?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a big brand. But what was interesting, to your point, is that actually I got the impression that these people, whoever had this holding, had about 6 or 7 or 8 of them around the city of Austin, and they were all branded the same way as far as the support, amenities, packaging, right? And there was an option where I could call or I could text. So we had a situation immediately come up that we needed something, right? So I called. I left a message. Didn't get a call back. But at the same time that I called, I also text. Which one do you think I got to respond to immediately and basically take care of? The text.
Right.
So
Text.
to your point, this wasn't even where there was a centralized back-of-house support in that building. There's somebody that basically trusting around town, for 5 or 6 or 7 properties that all basically had the same packaging, probably the same Willie Nelson poster on the wall, and it had the little it's Austin, so I had my little LP player, and basically a couple of records, and I could actually play that. It was like kind of a little cute, and there was a monkey on the wall and a couple of things that were just eclectic. And I'm thinking, how many of these are scattered around town that make up for a small boutique situation?
Sure. Right. Yeah, a good room count at the end of the day.
It's interesting, right?
Exactly.
And you're going into particular properties that maybe you're buying into that condo or whatever. That's a good price point or something like that. And there's a coffee shop downstairs. I didn't have to do any food and beverage. There's an interesting element. It was a hybrid, but it wasn't even centralized.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that to the fact that you're starting to see hotels starting to look at Airbnb and how to benefit from the platform. And it just makes sense.
Yeah.
I am that blasphemous guy also. I have stayed in Airbnb and appreciate them, and it just depends on it depends on what it is. If you think about it. So I've got 3 kids, and we go on vacation in Europe. My choice was either getting 2 hotel rooms or a flat.
Oh, yeah.
Right, with a kitchen.
Yep.
Right, and I don't have to go downstairs and get the coffee.
Yep.
Or call the front desk for anything.
Right.
So it just depends on the situation. However, I will say that for consistency, and again, if you're a points person, et cetera, there's a lot of people that are so afraid of Airbnb, of what they may end up with, the uncertainty that they'll never go there.
Well, I think that's always been, part of the issue behind vacation rentals. Okay.
Well, and what kind of traveler you are. I
Right.
mean, are you open to basically the variety and inconsistency?
No.
Is that part of that experience of going to Rome, for example? Or is it, no, I want a standardized, homogeneous kind of experience every single time I
I need
travel?
a certain sheet count.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
And if I'm
certain
traveling
amenities.
for business, maybe that's the case. But if I'm traveling with a little bit more latitude, I maybe don't want to know where the road leads.
Right. Yeah.
There's times that. What are you seeing out there with all the brands right now? I mean, Marriott swallowing up Starwood, La Quinta going to Wyndham, and then Wyndham dealing off Knights Inn to Red Lion, and we've got a lot of musical chairs and consolidations and other things going on, plus the untold number of soft brands that have been launched over the past 36 months. That's got to be trials and tribulations on a daily basis for someone like you, because you're looking at all the brands, all the assets. You're looking at, your clientele, and now you're trying to match them up with the right brand if they buy X hotel in Manhattan Beach, let's say.
Sure.
That's got to be difficult and
It gets
challenging.
interesting. We've done a number of development deals, and I'm working on a couple right now. One we're just going to launch this week up in Fresno. Unfortunately, up there, I think we have a pretty good bandwidth of who we can pick. But we have been in situations where we'll get a hold of a brand, and they're saying, we're saturated. I mean, we can't
put another one in there.
Even with the Marriott-Starwood merger, we're saturated.
Wow.
We can't add any more.
That sounds like Anaheim.
Well, Anaheim falls in that category.
Category,
And there's a number of markets that fall in that also. I think, depending on who you talk to, Hilton will tell you that it's been a boom for them to have the Marriott-Starwood merger, because now that takes all of that product under one roof and says, okay, well, we're now the other guy, right? Instead of competing against 2 companies.
Yeah, it cleans up the market.
One. Yeah, it cleans it up a little bit.
You've got Marwood.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it now. It is a challenge because you're always trying to figure out what's going to work best for the site. And think about it. If you're a developer and you're coming into a market and the brand says you can have one of these new brands, well, my question as a developer is going to be, what's your track record? What's the traction I'm going to have if I come out with this name?
How close to critical mass are you? What type of key money? How long do I have to hold on to it?
Am I the first guy? Am I the second guy? Where am I in the life cycle of this product? And in some cases, the brands would be willing to give you key money and get you to participate in the deal and help you out. And you take a calculated gamble with that. I think for the most part, there have been some brands that have been slower to take off, but in light of the past couple of years, I think a lot of those have been able to gain the traction.
Yeah.
It's a real dilemma. Do you pay the franchise fee, or am I have a good enough marketing team that I can go boutique, right, and make the deal run? Hotel Z, you mentioned a little bit a while ago in San Diego. Independent operator based out of Washington State, out of Seattle, will never brand, and they had to be in the gas lamp. We need to be there.
Got to be there.
And that hotel was actually destined to be a branded hotel, and the buyer got in early enough to stop that process. It's probably the easiest way to put it, and keep it an independent. Right? So I have a lot of clients in the Disneyland market that will never brand. You just don't need it.
Right.
So
again, location.
Well, and part of not branding, if you imagine, if it kind of sounds weird to say it, but part of not branding may be your competitive advantage in certain markets.
In certain markets, sure.
As an independent.
Right. You're that unique asset.
I got all these branded properties around me, and I'm that millennial that's looking for a little unconstructed, non-curated thing, and hey, I'm going to go here.
But warning to all you owners out there that are thinking about jumping your brands, you better have a good marketing team. You better have a lot of experience in the marketplace and be well educated in what you're doing.
That's why I said it was kind of like a funny thing to say, because you may be not flagged or branded, but in your non-branded, deconstructed kind of state, you still need to have a very sophisticated offering.
Right.
Yeah.
That is dialed into even more so than if you were branded.
Yeah.
I have a client in Anaheim by Disneyland who has the most amazing asset manager. He's been there, 25, 30 years. And without him, I'm not sure how well they would have been doing on their independent assets.
Yeah. It's amazing how that can, that's half the battle.
Well,
sometimes.
your strength switch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now it's your staff, now it's your kind of quality of employees, your involvement in the community, your vested nature in the community, your success being a vested aspect of the community wanting to see happen. I mean, all of that stuff that basically it's not me just putting out regular collateral material and email blasts and all that stuff.
So I get these questions from buyers like, so Rod, do you think this is a great deal? And my canned response is, I don't know you. You can take a great asset and be a horrible operator and kill it, right? You can take a great asset and make it better, or you can take a bad asset and make it better or kill it. It just depends on you as the operator. Are you bringing in a third-party operator? Well, no, we're going to do it. Well, I really can't answer
I have no idea.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. For me, if it's the right operator, it's a great deal.
Right.
For you?
Yeah, what's your gardening skills? Do you have a green thumb? Do you not have a green thumb? I gotta give you a healthy plant, but you could kill it from overwatering or underwatering.
Can you tell me what ADR means? No? Well, I think you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
You might need some help.
Just a tad. Just a little bit of help. We're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. We're going to probably go to about 1/4 the hour. What do you think of True? They've come out with their Phase 2, their new PIP. They're already changing it. I mean, if they hit critical mass?
No, I'm going to take the fifth on this one. I really can't answer that.
Okay.
There's.
I like them. I think it's a neat little hotel.
Yeah. The ones I've seen, I like.
Yeah.
But where are they in their life cycle and their critical mass? I have no idea.
Yeah, I haven't. Maybe we get somebody from Hilton on.
Well, and is that life cycle now on these brands quicker? I mean, with so much out there, the question is, what is the sustainable life cycle of some of this stuff? Is it really solid? And I've asked this question multiple times.
Yeah.
Is it really a solid offering, or is it just sort of a timely, trendy offering that basically will be relocated?
You throw a brand into the Southern California market. It's, I think, the wrong market to say that product is working or not working, because it's going to work.
Right.
Again, if you have a good director of sales, it should.
Yeah, the market might have some biases that maybe it's skewing the sample, if you will.
Right, exactly. The demand's there.
Yeah.
Right. You're bringing in the guests, and the guy says, "Well, I've got my Hilton points or my Marriott points or my Hyatt points, and I go online, and this is the only X product within that parent company in the market. I'll give it a shot." And the next thing you know, their occupancy is running 82%. It's like, okay, well, obviously it's doing well. All right, well, let's take that same building and move it into Central California, where it's freeway traffic, leisure business coming in, and people are going, what is that? I'm going to go stay at the other one that I know down the street. Mm-hmm. So it really varies.
It does vary. You know what I like?
Only time's going to tell on that one. I mean, it's a question I asked, but I know the answer. We're going to have to learn as we unfold.
Well, that, and I think you're going to see some big changes between the front half of the millennials and the latter half.
Well, kind of like your baby boomers and us X-generator.
Yeah.
It's the same thing,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and here's the funny thing on that, only in just sort of overarching, is that people change. So when you label people as a generation of certain characteristics, those people change. I mean, baby boomers. Paul is a perfect example.
No, he's grouchy. He's not allowed to talk.
But he's the trailblazing baby boomer. He's the one that basically did everything different. Exactly my point, right? And at some point along the way, the fearless baby boomer became a very scared older person, and so we attach so much with these demographics and all these studies and so forth and so on. But people's human behavior changes over time, and due to economic and reality. Financial. His concern is, am I gonna outlive my savings at this point?
Sure.
20 years ago, he's like, come on, I got more money put aside than
too funny.
$50,000 a year, buy me a lot of beer. I mean, oh God, I just aged myself.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Is there anything you wanted to share with us in the audience about Anaheim?
Anaheim. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what we talked about this earlier.
Yes.
So today we're launching the Red Lion hotel. It is on a long-term ground lease. A little spiel here, but it's going to be priced very attractive, well below $100,000 a door, so way below replacement costs. Again, it is a long-term ground lease. You will have to retain either the Red Lion brand, or you can spend a little money on CapEx and move up to their RL. The property's been extremely successful in its location.
It has been.
And for those that can probably picture the area around Disneyland, Catella and Harbor is ground zero, and this is a half a block just south of Catella on Harbor. So pretty phenomenal location, right across the street from the convention center. We haven't launched this yet. It's ideally going out, if not within the next half hour, or it's already gone.
You're hearing that here first.
Yeah, so
thank you, Rod.
We will have, I'm sure, when I get through here, quite a few phone calls to return. We're also taking out a development deal out in Fresno. In too early, I've got 4 other deals that can't talk about now, but
I'll have you back.
All Southern California based that should be coming out. But
great.
It's an exciting time, I think, throughout the rest of this year and the next. And I don't see the market really slowing down for people that are concerned about that. I think if you're a seller, now is probably the time to do it, simply because the demand is there. The demand is very much there.
Yeah. I want to follow that Red Lion deal. I think that's, you're right. It's ground zero. It's fascinating. 100,000 a key. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some real opportunities there, and I love the location. A little biased. One of the owners at Park West, Ed LaCivita, did a lot of work on those renovations.
There's nothing trading in that market. This would be one of the first assets to come up. Truly marketed in that market. I mean, you hear a lot about off-market deals, and then when you go to approach them, pricing is such that it
doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, I think that was part of the reason why our friends over at Penn Hotels, Pat and company, decided to build
the Element.
Yeah,
so, which was a great deal.
And that was, one of the brands that I think really benefited from the merger.
Yep.
So we're going to wrap it up now. I want to thank our guest and my co-host. So we've got Rod Apodaca, Rad Gantos. Rad Gantos and Associates helped bring the show to you today, as did Chris and Ed at Park West General Contractors.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Rod, you want to give everybody your website and how to get a hold of you?
CBRE.com, and look up Rod Apodaca, and you'll be able to find me. If not, reach out to Craig.
There we go.
Apodaca.
There you go.
You got that,
That's
Paul?
our engineer. Hey, thank you, everybody. Rod, thank you for being here. It's been a great show.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thank you for being our guest today on Checkout California. We look forward to having you as a guest with us again in 2 weeks. Until then, you can always reach us through our Checkout California Facebook page or by emailing us at checkoutcalifornia@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. So do let us know what you think of the show and what areas of interest you'd like to see us cover in the future. Your feedback is very important to us as we continue to bring you the best hospitality our Golden State has to offer. Until next time, may all your days be filled with sunsets and palm trees. Now, go experience and check out California.